Okay, I'm setting up the thingy now. Where do we go here? Do we want to call the others in?
Andrea,
how are you doing,
Marcus?
I'm going to set it up so that we just click later. Share screen.
Yeah, we don't need. I don't think we need the chair.
Where's the chair?
We use an audience to cheer us
Yeah.
in the screen.
Wow.
We could do like circus performers. I went to the Big Apple Circus.
What's it called?
recently.
I can't remember what's
When they
the
want
history of the...
Clapping, they go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, come on. Oh, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Woo!
You saw what I did.
Clap
Come
now.
on.
Clap now.
Give it to me, for God's sake.
Yeah.
This is my fucking life. Come on. So everybody, risk your life. It's true.
Oh, future of the
As a
present.
practical joke, as soon as you put on the helmet, we can remove all the air from the room.
We're gonna walk down. You'll be the only one left.
Okay.
So good.
Right, are they coming through?
Yeah, they're just getting sorted in with the recording.
Okay. Right, the countdown.
You're kind of new shit.
Right.
You're on.
You're in here, great. So are you able to man that? I couldn't log into this. I didn't really... So I'm going to read from my phone intro, which is a bit like... I'll just add a
Where's the
bit of
teleprompter?
anyone. Yeah, I know. Right. Yeah, we're about to go. Are you all right? Yes, go on to Franklin Furnace page rather than that, yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll just see. This is the experiment. I'm going to have to go to Zoom. So I'm screen sharing the whole thing. Oh, it's 15. Okay. So are we going to start? Can we go live? Yeah, I think you're right in that. Okay. 3, 2. Let's find the Zoom. There we go. We're not all fitting in.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Diana's not in the frame yet.
There we go. Okay, so here we go.
Here we go.
Yes.
So are we live? Can we see, check over there? Is that coming through? The delays of new media. Are we all right? Right, great. Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to this unrehearsed, zero budget, low tech, mostly unscripted netcast live from Franklin Furnace headquarters in New York. I am Ellie Clark, and I'm an artist and researcher doing a practice-based PhD at Goldsmiths in London, and I've been here for the past few weeks digging through these boxes, looking through CD-ROMs and various Flash websites, looking at, in particular, the Future of the Present series, which was a series of performances that Franklin Furnace supported between 1998 and 2008 for work designed to be shown online. In 1998 to 9, I was an intern here, and have occasionally, in the past few weeks, encountered or bumped into myself in some of the documentation of the post-show performances or in the netcasts that we had and the live discussions that took place afterwards. My time here in the 90s and being witness to these very early netcasts, bumpy in their transmission, buffering in their speed, actually had a massive impact on the way I think about the internet today and the work I continue to make. So with me here at Franklin Furnace, in person, is founder Martha Wilson, who founded Franklin Furnace from her loft apartment in Tribeca. And we have fund-winning artist from the Future the Present series, Irina Danilova, Ray C. Wright, and Diane Luden. And then joining us from Zoom, from various corners of the world, we have Tony Sant over there, who's zooming in from Salford. And we have Lynn Casabon, who's in Baltimore. Oh, and Joshua, I'm sorry, yes, that's good one. And Joshua Pope. Yeah, and my PhD project is called Is My Body Out of Date? The Drag of Physicality in the Digital Age. And I'm looking at the relationship between the physical body and the digital body, and the physical body being the body that we inhabit, that we have to be in order to survive, the flesh and blood body we're still dependent upon to exist. And then the digital body is the data that is out there about us, that we generate and is generated about us. And then the moments at which these bodies, the digital body and the physical body, collude, collide, compete, and collaborate in the performance and setup of identity. In the context of a world that is increasingly digitally mediated and tracked, where the definitions between physical and digital are difficult to ascertain, including whether an agent you're talking to is a bot or not, the Future the Present series offers me a case study and a means of trying to track the developments of the net in the early years and the navigation of it as a medium for performance. Where am I? Oh yeah. Franklin Furnace was one of the very, very first venues to offer up the internet as a platform for performance. So a great deal of the work in the early stages was at least about trying to figure out how to do it. And a lot of the files I've been looking in has been all about the various platforms which existed and probably no longer exist anymore. Well, I know they don't. Some of the performances were streamed live. So some of the performances took place in various studios and were live streamed at the time they were happening, and others were made earlier and edited and broadcast at a later set date, sometimes with live discussions afterwards. Some of the video documentation, such as the series from 2000, are as yet totally unfindable because the server they were housed on and so-called archived on no longer exists. The netcast will last about an hour and with regular breaks. So if you're watching on Facebook, please do share questions or comments, and we're going to have a regular break and we'll actually try and get to your questions. And now I'm going to hand over to Martha.
Hi.
Come forward.
Oh, come forward, okay. I want to start the discussion with the culture wars. Some of us are not old enough to remember the culture wars. The culture wars cranked up for Franklin Furnace in 1984 when we invited 9 women artists and activists to select video, books, performance art, installation work that asked the question whether pornography could be a feminist practice. A member of the right-wing religious right picked up a brochure off our front desk and wrote postcards to all of our funders and claimed that we were showing pornography to 500 children per day. This was 1984. This is also when Annie Sprinkle decided to step over the line and, instead of be a porn star, become a performance artist. So I'm very proud of that fact. But in the wake of the culture wars, and subsequently was Karen Finley was considered an obscene artist, and the NEA4 mounted a lawsuit to get their fellowships back, because their fellowships had been denied because of the content of their work. It was Karen Finley, John Fleck, Holly Hughes, and Tim Miller, the NEA4. Anyway, at the end of the culture wars, by the end of the culture wars, the internet had been invented and become popularized and was being used by regular people. And we decided as an organization that the next free zone was going to be the internet and that we were going to go virtual. We went virtual in 1996, September 1996. Our website became our public face, and we sold them off. We had been living in for 20 years, and we no longer had a performance space. So we started to I started to look for online performance art venues. What could we do to present our performance artists worldwide online? Now, at the time, the image that was being produced by organizations such as Pseudo is one of several companies that were trying to put television on the internet. I mean, that was what their goal was. The image was 2 inches by 2 inches, and it was really chunky. It's kind of, the image was, it looked like the image was being shot on the moon. And so Elena Danilova exploited the properties of the internet at that time by doing a performance with an American astronaut, a Russian cosmonaut and an American astronaut landed on the moon and had a discussion. And do you want to, should I let Elena talk about this?
Well, we're going to speak about that. I mean, we can say that, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
The punchline is that the properties of the internet, although primitive, were exploding the real time and space that the performance art community had become used to using, because now we could take an image and put it on a server and get it in 6 months. So time was gone, and space also was gone because it was being broadcast all over the world.
Yeah,
That's my intro.
that's great. Yeah, why is that doing that? I think that's kind of funny because I'm sharing that. Great, and thanks, Martha. So, Tony, would you like to say a bit about your research?
Hi, Tony.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Martha. It's lovely to see you all again after all these years. Perhaps it's longer for the rest of us except for Martha, but it has some years even with Martha. I won't take very long to say much, really, except to say that my association with Franklin Furnace really comes in 3 phases. The main phase, of course, is the work I did in terms of my research for my PhD initially and what eventually became my book about Franklin Furnace. But before that, the first phase starts from about 1995-96, which is when I moved to New York and I started my graduate studies at NYU. And it was there that I first became aware of Franklin Furnace, really. We have to remember, aside from the wonderful potted history that Martha just gave, that the Franklin Furnace performance space had been closed down some years before this, so in the early 90s. And so the Franklin Furnace performance program was in exile, as Martha has described it several times. And so it wasn't so easy to come across the performances presented by Franklin Furnace at this time. It was relatively easy to go to the gallery space on Franklin Street, but that only lasted until 1996, right? When, as Martha said, the Furnace sold the loft on Franklin Street and went virtual. And so this is, if you will, when I really became interested that there was something really going on here about the immateriality. There's nothing there; it's all virtual, but it's there, and it's all the same level of commitment and the same level of engagement, at least from the organization that it had had for the previous 20 years. So the main phase then was really started with Franklin Furnace deciding to consolidate its performance program into these things that were called live art on the internet at the time. So the Future of the Present was presented as a live art on the internet program. And here is where my worlds intersected, if you will, because I was already doing some research on pseudo and work that Galinsky was doing on the performance channel, which was where the work by Franklin Furness was being presented. And so Galinsky said, "Well, you've got to do something with Martha." I said, "Yes, of course. Let's go to Wales, which is where some of Martha's ancestors are from." And so we brought it off to Aberystwyth, and this is where we had a coven of sorts, if you will. And at the PSI conference is where we concocted what eventually became, firstly, a set of classes that Martha and I started teaching at NYU. I called Going Virtual. Martha and I taught this for 2 years at the NYU Performance Studies Department. And then I conducted a series, actually, of interviews with Martha for Franklin Furness's 25th anniversary, which coincided with 9/11 in 2001, unfortunately. But eventually, this was then first published in TDR, and eventually this was the beginning, if you will, of what I started writing for my PhD. It's also important to note that this work wasn't just concentrated, with just pseudo. There was a significant amount of this work that then went on in collaboration with Parsons. And Jean-Guy, I think, is an important character there, as much to mention as Galinsky was for pseudo. But without taking too much time, for me, the final phase, which is a much shorter phase, although it's longer in years, is what I like to call after Mouchette. So Martha had mentioned to me this really interesting artist that Franklin Furness had programmed called Mouchette, or this really interesting piece that was put on at Postman's Gallery in 2003. And from this, Martha started writing something that I consider still a very important text, which is lessons Franklin Furness learned from presenting live art on the internet. This was her editorial for a special supplement or a special section of Leonardo, the magazine that's published by MIT Press. And there I wrote about Mouchette, or I wrote an introduction to an interview about Mouchette, but I think this was what crystallized everything for me. It was also the year when I completed my PhD, the year after I left New York for the UK. But it was really at this time, I think, that I really became interested in seeing how we make some sense of all this work that I had done with Franklin Furness, so that I could kind of have something tangible rather than just my postgraduate studies. And with the support of Franklin Furness and with some very, very gracious generosity as ever from Martha, we did eventually come to the book in 2011. And I think my work really stopped more or less there in relation to Franklin Furness, although I've gone on to do several other things in relation to media archaeology and documenting performance and digital art and internet art. I think the last thing I really did was revisit or revise the interview that Martha and I had published in already 2 or 3 previous editions into the Martha Wilson source book, which again is, I think, an essential text for anyone doing any research on Franklin Furness. Don't forget, I always contended that Martha Wilson is Franklin Furness. Franklin Furness is Martha Wilson. I rest my case.
Thank you, Tony. I'm going to, just to give some images to the people who are watching, I'm going to just have this slideshow of some things that I have encountered in, in my kind of travels through the internet, and that's hopefully just going to run so that we can see a few things there. So you kind of see some of the, obviously the design and the calendars and that sort of thing, and the design of these kind of flyers, and a lot of, although it was all online, there was still so much actual postcard sending out by post and that sort of thing. So you forget, then there's me where I found myself in an archive, and Martha in various outfits. So yeah, I think that's, so Tony's book, which I kind of read in the last actually month because I actually found it here, and it's very. I think it's very interesting how it talks about the kind of changes in the way that the net develops, and also the way that the various artists are responding to that, and obviously the pitfalls as well. But I wonder at this point then if we should look at Joshua's work, and your work was presented in 1999.
Yes, that's right.
So it was during the first series, which was in association with Pseudo Studios, and that's just come in so you can see me as well. So Pseudo Studios was when I arrived in 1998. That's where these netcasts were happening, and it was quite an amusing experience going up to this 6th floor loft, and kind of a lot of rigmarole to make a video that was, as Martha said, absolutely tiny and very difficult to watch in a way, and obviously you had to have dial-up and that sort of thing. So I'm going to show you some of your work, Joshua. Sorry? Are there people watching? Great people. Hello, people watching. Right. I'm just looking at. Hang on, wait. So this is Joshua's work that was shown. So I had a question for you, which is: was this live streamed, or was it recorded before and then streamed and then shown by Pseudo?
Oh, as far as I remember, it was
Happened live.
Done live.
Ellie, can you share the screen? I can't see it.
Oh yes, sorry.
Oh.
Sure. There you are.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Right, here we go.
Call me. What you gonna call me? Huh? What you gonna call me? Say, Ray call.
We've got
Yes.
Yes.
So Joshua, do you want to put the sound down a bit? Do you want to explain a little bit how this was made?
Okay. The piece is called Headset Sextet, and it uses a technique that I developed, entirely invent actually, that I call headphone-driven performance. And performers wear headphones and try to vocalize along with pre-recorded voices that they've never heard before. And I mean vocalize right along, not repeat right after, which is what most people are sure that I mean. But I train my performers to really vocalize right along, which means they're horribly inaccurate. It's all mistakes. I rehearse them with practice material.
Yeah.
And the main part of this training is to get them to sort of jump ahead and get right on top of the material and do it with utter conviction, which is not to say that they don't care, what the hell, it doesn't matter, because I'm pretending that it's correct. They're trying, but they're also believing, and they're absolutely simulcasting. And the material that they're hearing is mostly just plain spoken language and some singing. But the result of their effort and their complete delusional belief that they're nailing it gives me the effect that I want. It's mostly gibberish. But for various reasons, actually for one main reason, because the material repeats, you get this process of gibberish morphing its way into real language at various different rates. And so I did a suite with 6 performers and 6 movements, as it turned out, that I called the Headset Sextet. And this was a performance piece made to be done live in front of people. And because of the surprise the built-in surprise that's necessary for this kind of performance to work, each performer could do one role only once. So it's very much an ephemeral thing. And as such, documentation is really, really important. I mean, it's always important, but this is a built-in one-time thing. So you can't record the second night and have it be maybe better than the first night because it's going to have a different cast.
Mhm.
And so, even though when we did the
Well,
netcast,
apparently it stopped streaming. That's what you just found out, right?
we stopped streaming. I blew up the internet.
I wonder why that is. That through Facebook it stopped streaming. Okay. We lost the live. That's good.
When did you guys say exactly?
Yeah. Okay. We had stopped streaming apparently, so we've got to figure out what's going on. Was that because I closed? Oh, because I closed.
Oh.
When
So
did
to
it
go back.
stop? When did it stop?
It stopped halfway through when I was speaking.
Oh no.
That's okay.
Oh, no. Oh, dear.
Oh no.
Oh,
Okay.
Delphi's not-
Right. We better go back then to you, Tony. Yeah.
That's it?
Hang on.
It's
Wait.
a kind of ephemerality.
Like you were. That's true.
Yeah. It's really hard to. Yeah.
Hey Joshua, that was true before.
Yeah. We have to do it again.
Out into the, they're calling to say
Yeah.
you're off the air.
Okay. We're going to do another one. Live.
Yes, dear. Anybody? Hello, Martha. I'm good. One moment. Hold on. Don't leave. Hold on.
Franklin Furnace Archive.
Oh yeah.
That's it. We got.
What is it? I don't know.
Okay. Share screen. Right. We're going to start. So Tony, would you mind saying a bit more, or should we go back, or maybe we bring you in after? We'll have Joshua, and then we'll have you more in dialogue, perhaps.
I don't mind. I mean, the question I had actually was that you were recording this aside from streaming.
Yes, I am. Yeah,
So,
I'm recording
so
it.
if
Yeah.
that's the case,
Yeah,
even
I'm
if we're
yeah.
not being streamed, we're still
Yeah.
being recorded.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go live
So
again.
it's not
I
lost.
think it has happened even once or twice in the first couple of seasons. That, and although 20 years have passed, I see that the
Ah.
Very
still
interesting.
live with Franklin Furnace.
Okay, I'm clicking live again. There we go. Okay. Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. We seem to have a technical hitch. And is it now streaming again?
Takes time.
Yep, back on. Okay, great. So we seem to, unfortunately, we left half of Tony's talk there, but we'll go back to him, and we're going to then probably show your work again that we just did. We're going
As
to
you
do
like.
we're going to do a
document.
reconstruction of what we
Right.
just did for the benefit of the live stream. So let me just find that.
We can let it continue from there.
So this was no,
but that's
this
the
is
one.
just a quick time. So this was work that Joshua Freed made in 1999, and it was live streamed. So we're just going to watch a bit of this now with the sound.
What you gonna call me? Say, come on! Great call.
Race you? What you like on?
Yes.
Right down, lady.
Yes.
Ooh, right
Yes.
and
Right.
right on, hot boys, the rest of the world. Not.
Each man is a prayer to God.
Ah!
So Joshua, do you want to just explain a little bit about? We'll have it still running.
Okay, so we we saw the end of one movement and the beginning of the next movement of my piece called Headset Sextet. And it is a suite for 6 headphone-driven performers. And headphone-driven performance is a technique that I developed, but I didn't actually invent, but I'd say I developed it, where performers try to vocalize along with pre-recorded voices over headphones that they've never heard before. And I mean vocalize right along. Most people think that I mean repeat right after, even after I say what I'm saying. But I really mean repeat right along. So, and I train my performers to do this. They're hearing very emotional, but regular spoken language and some singing. And the result of their attempt, and they really do try to be accurate and convey the emotion and not lag behind, gives this crazy effect, which I want and like, and it's mostly gibberish, to be clear. And so each performer can do a given role only once. So every night is different. So it's technologically enhanced ephemerality. And as such, it really needs documentation. And the funny thing is, sitting here now, I barely watched this since the netcast on Pseudo. And back then, you know, it was supposed to expand, okay, it's 2 by 2 inches by 2 inches on the screen, very slow frame rate. And now, this turns out to be one of the best documents I have of this work. And it's crazy that it got here. But this work itself was not intended specifically to be netcast. I'm not prolific enough for that. This took years for me to create. So we just did it for the netcast. So I was trying to think, is there an angle by which this fits into the net art webby thing? And the one thing I could think of is it has this sort of built-in mediation because of the headphones. Time only human performance. I'm just glad to get it out there and document.
I mean, the impression I had when looking at it, it's a bit like everybody being on the street in New York talking on their phones at the same time. Which, of course, you know, not everyone had phones in those days, but it's sort of like everybody's like having their own kind of dialogue alongside each other rather than with each other. So I thought that was kind of, from seeing it from this perspective from now.
I can see that. Back then, if you were talking out loud and no one was there on the streets of New York, you were branded pathological.
Yeah.
But now, you can't get yourself branded pathological.
Yeah. If what, sorry?
The late 90s.
They were just there, yeah. You had one in your performance, actually.
Oh.
Yeah. You actually get, yes, you get you have a little, yeah. Great. Thank you, Joshua.
Sure.
So, Ray, would you like to show a bit from you now? And here, because I think we cut off before, here are just some images that I've taken of my kind of digging through the archives of lots of slides. Actually, the slides are very interesting. I'm just sort of making a little detour here because documentation. The first performances were incredibly well documented on slide film, as if they were live performances. And of course, it's just lots of bodies sitting around a computer. And although it's different performances taking place, the kind of look of all of them is pretty similar because the way you sit in front of a computer is different. It has less possibilities of difference than when you sit on a chair without a desk in front of you or whatever. So I found that quite interesting. I think that stopped then about probably a year in. There suddenly weren't any more slides. But actually, I'm very glad of those now. But it's a lot of documentation of very old machines, which is good. So we're now going to show Ray. So we just took minute clips from much longer works.
It's infrared. You can hear it. Halfway between a mugging and a seduction. This struggle, the metal against my thighs, something under my short skirt, either a hand or a break. I think of the expression shocks and struts. These are car parts, but I'm not sure what they do. I think shocks are what keep you from bouncing too hard in motion, but struts make me think of peacocks and of men. And there's the expression, parking. They went parking. So old, that expression. So stupid, so innocent. I've got these things in my mind. sitting on the floor of my mind like rotten metal under a riverbed. The car is warm. Day ended so long ago, but the metal is warm, not with use, but with sun. It's high summer midnight. Someone has parked this car, and we're up against it, struggling, a biblical struggle. We look from...
So I don't know if you want me to show you another little clip from another part of it, because it's all very different, isn't it? So I think that would be quite good to show maybe from, I think this is...
When she finished it, she spoke to it. She said, "You are very beautiful. You are beautiful because I am beautiful, and because I made you, and because of the colors of you."
Sorry?
Do you have a mother? You're as beautiful as...
Sorry, you trying... Sorry, is that Tony?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was saying, like the rest of us to see it, perhaps you could share your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, we've got unshared. Sorry about that. Can you see it?
As a ball, you are as beautiful as light. You are as beautiful as a ribbon. You are as beautiful as a loving mother. You are as beautiful as a kid. You are as beautiful as love. You are as beautiful as, what do I see here? Purses. What's purses? You are as beautiful as a blankie. You are as beautiful as a card. You are as beautiful as a pillow, as a blankie and a pillow, as a cloud.
Yeah, and then I wanted to just go to the bit where you also stole this bit of a previous performance by Franklin Fowler as well, just because it was, and that had just happened the year before. Yeah. There was Pseudo Studio Walk, and that was actually the very first live netcast that happened. So, I mean, if you want, we can turn the volume down on this, and then we can speak a little bit over as it plays. If I can work out how to do that. Okay, I think we'll have to stop it. So it's not a quick time. But yeah, if you'd like to just say a bit about making that work, and also kind of, I suppose, also what's interesting is one of the questions. So I sent a survey to lots of people, all the artists who received a grant over these 10 years. I sent a survey out to, and this is how come this has happened actually, because I just had a question at the end saying, if we have a netcast, would you be happy to take part? And this was actually organised really in short notice, sort of a week ago or something. Yeah. So, and one of the questions that I was asking in that was why, what was it for you to get this grant? And so I think that's also a really interesting thing. You think about the other grants that are out there, and then there's this grant that asks you to make work on the internet, which you might not even, a lot of people didn't even have at home at that point. So how do you do that? So yeah, Ray, I wonder if you can sort of respond to that around your work a little bit.
Well, I actually got another grant, which I used this work. And so that was interesting. But I'm struck looking at all these things that I chose from all the work that had already been done. I chose them because they appealed to me. And then I had some other artists whose work I liked, and then I had some children, like the one you just had, who's popular. And I was reading a poem in the beginning of Deborah Goins, and she uses a lot of her children's words and thoughts. So this appropriation, what for me was common to all these things is they were somehow peaceful. And that really strikes me because I am not. I mean, I'm I'm trying to be, especially at this hour of my life, but I'm historically hysterical and combative and fighter. Yet in this medium, I was really drawn to things that had some quiet and spaciousness and peacefulness. And looking at peace again, I went, oh, I'm just talking too much. Like, I don't want to hear the talking. I want to just look. That's all I wanted. It's just on this medium.
But do you think it made a difference for you? I mean, was that very much, I'm just interested in how different it might have been had it been a local TV broadcast, or if the internet, the fact, I'm interested in what made this as the kind of output kind of interesting, like what aspect of the internet kind of influenced or did you consider in the making of this?
Well,
what is appealing is the visuals.
Mm.
Right. So on a television show, there's a narrative, it's a story. This is a kind of dance.
Yeah.
Which I was saying before, it's participatory in that. I loved watching the movie. And I loved how Galinsky colored.
Yeah.
Only that.
Yeah, and you go through goldfish and
And sky. All
Yeah.
of these very
yeah. So that was Galinsky that did this, and he made the pictures different. Yeah. And that had only just happened about 6 months before, right? So,
Yeah.
and did you speak to Helena about that, or did you just do it?
We had her permission.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and of course the whole issue of appropriation has never gone away with the internet. It's grown with the internet, hasn't it? So it's great. Yeah.
But to what end are we using them?
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess that's what's
Yeah.
I was really struck because we were talking about the body. That when Martha was speaking, she's sitting right next to me.
Yeah.
And when she first sat down in the room, I said, "Oh, you smell good." You
Yeah.
know, like you can't get that from me.
No.
But I noticed that I was looking at Martha sometimes when she was speaking, and then other times, of course, I was looking at her image.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see her in a different way.
Yeah. Well, as we've established, Zoom has this touch up my appearance special setting that just selects itself, where it airbrushes all your wrinkles out. So I'm actually 10 years older than I look. Yeah. So thank you for that. I think we'll move on. Lynn, are you happy to? I'm going to show a little bit of your work here. This is again in just a minute. And
Okay.
And this work you made in, remind me, was it 2004?
That's when I started the project in 2003. Actually, it was the website probably was online by 2005, 2006. It was also an installation, physical installation. You want me to say a bit about it before you show the clip? Or
No, let's show the
after?
clip first, and then yeah.
It's just something about that. It's just, I don't know what it is, but if it's a guy and what's he calling me for? I'll be home calling him on the house line.
But you like that you're being called.
Yeah.
That you're being,
Yeah.
somebody needs to get a hold of you.
Exactly. It's that important that he had to call me. He's pressed. I don't want to pick up the phone. I just like being able to do that. I don't know what it is. I'm sick. I don't know. I love that cell phone. I love it so much. Yeah.
Bah, l'objet que j'ai choisi, c'est celui-ci, c'est l'ordinateur portable.
So it's in
En
French.
gros,
I
il y a
think we
juste ma
can
vie,
get
mes
it.
numéros de téléphone, il y a les images, les films, le son que je veux écouter, les logiciels que j'utilise, et ce petit objet détient toute une partie de ma vie. Surtout les numéros de téléphone. De mes amis, des gens, aussi le...
Over to you.
Okay, so the project started, I had a fellowship, the Margot Foundation in Marseille, France, near Marseille, France, and I came up with this crazy idea, not being a fluent French speaker, to go around the city of Marseille and meet people and interview them about their connection to a technological device of their choosing that they felt an affinity with. So that's how it started. And then when I got back to Baltimore, I did another set of interviews of people in Baltimore with the same questions. And so you're seeing those two people there. The first one was in Baltimore, and she's talking about her flip phone, her cell phone. And then the second person is in Marseille talking about his laptop computer. That was in 2003. Her interview was done in 2004. So it's the project. Although the project existed as a website, that's how the Franklin Furnace grant played into it. That was its main home, but it really became an archive of technology very quick. Not very quickly, but it has become an archive because there actually wasn't like iPods at that point. So the collection of technologies that people chose are an interesting and eclectic collection.
And which were the other technologies that people talked about?
Oh, it ranges from there's other computers, there's television sets, there's camera, There's a vacuum cleaner. There's a highlighter pen. I cast a very broad net in terms of how I define technology. And actually the French people were a little bit more philosophical about it in terms of their, how they selected it. One woman who was in her 80s selected a book or books. And so we talked a lot about that, how that's a technology. In Baltimore, there was a woman from Mexico who did her interview in Spanish, and she chose a molcajete, which is like a mortar and pestle where she made salsa.
And can you just tell us a little bit about how you showed that then, and the kind of role of the internet within that, and how that responded to the future of the present kind of outline?
Yeah, so the project, unfortunately, the website is no longer. It's come down, but it was it wasn't Flash, but it was you click on because I took a photograph of the object in their home, so you clicked on the image of the object, it took you to the interview, and then if they were in French, actually I did translations both ways, so you could click on and get a transcription of the interview in French or in English. It would pop up on the screen, and also when you opened the website, you saw an image of the two cities side by side, a quick time. And the two cities actually, have a lot in common in many ways. They're both port cities, and Marseille being kind of thought of as kind of crime-ridden city in France, and Baltimore has the same reputation. So that was part of the.
Yeah. And did you get a lot of response as well from the internet? Do you think that's how most people experience the work? Or?
I think most people did. I did also do an installation in Baltimore at a gallery. I also showed the website in some exhibitions. Right. So probably more people saw it by the website than the installation.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any questions, Lynn, about that? Did you know that work? I'm also interested in how much you knew about this, how as artists, the future, the present, how much you knew about the other works that were being made.
I knew Lynn and her work, but not that.
Yeah. 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 Great. So it's the time for the cosmonaut. So this is Irina Danilova, and I'm trying to make this bigger now, but let's see. I wonder whether actually I'll put the film on at the same time, so that we'll have it, and then we can see it. Oops. Yeah. And this took place live at Pseudo Studios as well in 1999. Yeah.
So this last beat was supposed to be added to the recording before it was re-recorded. But I have to say first of all, it was in collaboration with Steve actually, this piece, and from the point of from my point of performer, when we turned into digital, it was quite different. Only one kind of like start, because virtual was only one thing. It was an audience, because everything else was the same. You know, like it was a place where we were performing and stuff. So everybody else was real. So basically, we kind of like exchanged us ability to show it to mass, much more people in the audience. We kind of exchanged our distance from it. And this I agree with Martha, because being in space, it was kind of like natural, because virtual reality is distance from the audience itself. Not only in technical way, as you mentioned, but also in this. So apparently this piece was about limitations of working in space, limitation of collaboration between two different cultures. So both of us were, looking from now, I understand that we both were shocked, culturally shocked when we were working together. I was still new to American culture, I was not yet American, but then just recently came to America. It was my first collaboration with American. It's also, of course, about, you could see that I was trying to be not only Russian American astronaut, but also women and men, and I think cosmonauts and astronauts have lack of expression of that in their costumes. So I was trying to do my cuticle piece was constantly kind of like falling for some reason, and that was part of this performance as well too. And what I have to also say, about this piece, about future and present, it was like present and past, and we are now future, not the present. And when you, thank you for, for this piece was kind of like on the background for a long time. Relation to Fountain Furnace wasn't, and it's actually unusually all the time with us. But when I look at this piece, I felt like it's very contemporary in a way, because this tangling of American-Russian tangling, this reminds me of something totally what's happening now. And apparently with the idea of undermining our democracy, our system, it's very explosive too. So there's, mir in Russia, it's the word that means not only peace, but also the world itself. So that was what means that it was peace that relates to our presence, not to from the presence.
Yeah. And it's yeah. It was this piece particularly, I think, the bit where they're all sort of attached, and only one of you can write. You've got these two keyboards, and you're kind of you can't escape each other, but you can't sort of be without each other in order to just write this message. So
as we were putting our clothes up, like our equipment up, we were tangling with each other more and more.
Yeah.
And the last piece came from Armageddon, this movie of that era.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like peaceful.
Great. Yeah, and you have your outfit still here, which is incredible. So now I can't ask you any more questions because you're in a helmet. When did you wear that last?
Excuse me, I'm
when was the last time you wore that?
What?
When was the last time that you wore that outfit?
Exactly there.
Just there. Right, that's amazing. This is 20 years later.
It's actually, it's thanks to Hiram's possibility to providing the space for the holiness stuff.
Yeah.
My installation stuff. Yeah, no, it was all. I mean, you cannot hide it much. You cannot put it into the drawer. So each time I came to my room where with all my pieces are, each time it's actually stick out. So I saw it all the time. So,
Yeah.
but I didn't know.
And you also went on a walk, didn't you? Around the streets, right? Because I came across some.
Yes, we were preparing for the show. We also made a small walk.
Yeah.
Spacewalk, we called it. That
I think in here somewhere we've got some images of you being. Here we go, out in the street. There we go. So you're walking the street with your helmet on there.
Slow, it was slow walk, and it was in most kind of like it was on 34th Street and around Macy's. So it was the most busy, one of the most busiest, many of those places. We chose some intersection which was quite busy, people running, and we were very slow walking from the movie space. People from outer space.
Have we got any questions from the powers that be now?
I was just going to point out, I think the best thing in the video is that if you look, you can see all the New Yorkers refusing to notice these two space people slowly walking.
Well, I have to say,
carefully ignoring it.
Well, they're New Yorkers. Anything could happen.
Well, one of the really interesting side things that I've found in my research has been in looking through videos, particularly that took place in the street. So SCART was one group from Belgrade who did a project where they tried to give out coupons for survival coupons, and they were basically kind of got entangled in the Yugoslav war, so they had a bit of an escape by coming here for a bit, as far as I understand. And what's really fascinating is to see these performances happening in a space when no one has their phones on them, and it's just become quite fascinating. The crowd looks quite fascinating, suddenly being eating their sandwiches and actually being physically, properly present, watching stuff. And it kind of course, I remember it then, but you forget how it looks, and the crowds look different. So this was also, that's interesting you made that comment, because I think, you can see it here. No.
But people are
having they're having a hard time. Oh, you need to come forward. Okay. So now I think we'll go to you, Brian. Do you want to come forward then, so that people can hear a bit better? Can you hear, Tony and Lynn? You can hear things.
Well, not too clearly, unless people move closer to the microphone. We can barely hear them.
Oh no. Okay.
It's okay.
Okay. So we'll find yours. Yeah, we were in outer space, exactly. So, okay, so this is Diane Luden, who received 2 grants in the Future of the Present series. One was 2000, and I'm so glad that you sent me this website, because I was like going so many. I've got a whole slideshow of dead links that I've come across in doing my research. Most of them are kind of either sex websites or property websites, and a few 404s. And then you sent me this, so here it was. And so, yeah, I'm just going to kind of go through this, and you can sort of speak. But I was just delighted to find this, because this really reminded me of just how. Oh, this one doesn't actually go anywhere, does it? That one?
No, it's a loop.
Oh, it does go. Okay.
Because what we did was we configured a computer that could do ASCII cam streaming. So that was one of the mediums we did. When I was working in 2000, I was surrounded by a lot of women who were also working in technology. And there was all this promotion of the fact that it was like a boys' game, which I never experienced in quite the same way. I mean, I was always surrounded by women who were working in technology, so that was my project, was to bring together a couple of other women and for us to do some live video sets and a website. And so we configured a computer to do the ASCII screen, you have to go to the ID banner app.
Yeah.
There's black and white. So go to the,
Yeah. Oh yeah, great.
Yeah, so that was my friends in Rome. I worked with two other women. One's Francesca De Rimini, who's part of another girl group called Vienna. And I was working with Agnese Trocchi, who was part of a group of people in Rome who were also doing squad social center work. And yeah, so we were all working a lot with writing and internet media. Came up with some pseudonyms that we then
which you see here.
animated.
Yeah. Yeah. So is this one?
Yeah, that's let's go to Spirit of Data.
Yeah.
And that's one of the some of the documentation.
Yeah, okay.
Of a show we were part of. And it was the website work that we had done.
Yeah.
And you see I guess it's not possible to turn it.
I mean, what I really liked about going through this website was just kind of how it just wasn't a template, and how it just made me realise how everything that we do now is kind of templated, and we're so used to it. And when you just go around and you have different fonts and it looks different, and it reminded me of building also websites. And you've got this music and things like that.
And that was authored by a friend of ours in Italy.
Yeah.
So Francesca De Rimini in Australia was working with somebody in Italy to create a soundtrack for Liquid Nation.
So it was a really collaborative project that you did, kind of with a lot of different people in different places, and it's just and you've got these poems and then these amazing images, and it's such a kind of simple way that it's put together, but there's something really exciting about kind of exploring that. And I think now pretty much every website we build will be with some kind of template, which almost feels like it's ready-made, really, and you can only just put your signature on the side of a urinal, and that's all you can do. And in those days you kind of build everything totally from scratch, and I mean could of course still do that, but then
What you're looking at here is Francesca De Rimini, and she to me is the mistress of hypertext.
Yeah.
Because she had been making lots of hypertextual works under different identities.
Yeah.
And she had been working on the net with other girl groups and other people internationally.
Yeah.
So we took from her practice.
And are you still in touch with these people?
She actually came to New York, and I saw her just this last year.
That's great.
She was here for a show with Virginia Barrett.
Yeah.
Another
But also that you don't really hold on to your authorship here, like as individuals. It's a kind of you'll just collapse into one body that is this website on the internet, which is also interesting. Yeah. Thank you. So, Tony, I don't know if you want to say anything more, since we kind of lost you for half of your what you were saying before.
Well, that's okay. I mean, most of what I was speaking about was very different, of course, from what the artists have been saying, in the sense that I was almost, in some ways, adding footnotes to the history that Martha was giving, to how we arrived to the future of the present, if you will, and then the subsequent years. I mean, to me, even listening to the artists speak about their works now, 20 years on, his work is still relevant and fresh today, in the sense that it hasn't dated conceptually, even though the aesthetics may seem dated, in the sense that some of the observations you were making about the way the web looked back then, say, or things on the internet may have looked, with these small video clips. But some of these concepts are still relevant and still valid. And although we now have, if you will, better technology, or the technology is more prevalent in that, here we are this evening organizing this event without needing to go to a media studio of any sort. But still, the rawness of it shows you how we're not there yet, really. So as much as we're now in the future of that past, there's still more to come. So I'm wondering what an iteration of any of the works, not just of the artists who were present, would be, but any of the other artists, and there were several dozen artists on these programs. What it would be now if this work were to be presented now.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot. It's interesting. Yeah.
I mean, and if we think of Ray's work as an example, which I wrote about even in the book in these terms, this is what has really happened most broadly. Where everyone became a thief, if you will, or a lot of people, if not everyone, became a thief online. With all the downloading and the reusing of material that is someone else's intellectual property. It's almost accepted that we're all thieves, if not art thieves now, to some degree.
Yeah, no, I've been thinking about this. So I was surprised how much work there was about surveillance, actually, even in very, very early on as well, in works that I hadn't known about before that I feel like they need to be shown. So that's been an interesting journey for me as well, for sure. And I think it is also the looking at the, now today is yesterday's future, isn't it? So, now we're in it, and then what's our future, and how and this sort of constant, I think with technology, you're constantly on the brink of, that what is now is not what's going to be there tomorrow. And so it's this almost perhaps this, I don't know, maybe restlessness or something where we can't quite just be in a moment, and it's sort of always going on in the archive and all that sort of thing. I don't know, has anyone got any other, would you like to come forward?
I was just thinking that it's interesting that the future of the present ended in 2008.
Yeah.
The big banking crisis.
That was actually something I really wanted, you reminding me, that's something I really wanted to talk about because, I hadn't made the connection with the banking crisis, but I found it very interesting that it was then, because I spoke to Martha about it, Martha said that basically at the beginning, and actually I observed this as well, in the early days, in the sort of up until probably 2002, you had the two funds. You have the Future of the Present Fund, which was all this lot, and 70 odd artists over the whole decade that got it. And then there was the Fund for Performance. And at the beginning, it felt like the people who were doing the Fund for Performance were kind of performing despite the presence of the internet. Like I'm a body, I'm in a space, and kind of almost in the kind of quite 70s trajectory, which of course was Franklin Furness's roots anyway. And then of course I'd already kind of thought, around 2008, because I'm looking at the merge of where is the person, going back to the digital bodies, really the physical body and the digital body, where do they merge? And I felt that really it was when people had an iPhone, had smartphones, where there was no longer such a divide. And then, and you also found that the proposals that were coming in were you could never just have a clean offline or a clean online.
Right.
The division just didn't exist
and
anymore.
then the year came along when Adrian Wartzel got a grant for the Fund for Performance Art, built robots and had the robots performing. That was the end of so we decided not to divide the grants up anymore, and just, because technology was a given at that point.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah. And Lynn, would you like to say any more?
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to see this array of pieces and the time frames that it represents. I guess mine is on the later side, or more recent side.
Yeah.
And so, doesn't have a performance aspect at all, really, except that I was, creating portraits of people live, or recorded portraits of people. So it's kind of interesting that I think the evolution of Franklin Furness and just how the work that was part of it probably changed over the years. Type of works.
and the issues changed also. I think the issue of surveillance, for example, Julia Sherr's piece, where she was spying. She was basically spying on other people. Pornography was the big deal during the culture wars, and then surveillance became the big deal during the digital era.
Yeah, some of the same issues.
The
that also was largely a pornography-driven medium.
Yeah.
That's true.
It was
That's
the military
so-
and,
yeah,
and porn.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or like video. Video is the same thing.
How horribly ironic.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Does anyone want to? How are we doing? Has anyone? We've got a few guests here. Have you got any questions or comments? Or have you? And is there anything on? So, no. Yeah, Tony, have you got anything? Any closing remarks?
Well, this interesting connection between pornography and surveillance. I mean, we could even flip it on its head. And to some degree, in internet studies now, we're looking at surveillance through pornography, where I don't know if any of you have received any of these scam emails that have been going around this summer, where you get someone claiming they have a video of you pleasuring yourself to pornography you've seen, that they've captured you through your webcam, and could you please send some money to this Bitcoin account so that this video can be deleted?
That was in Black Mirror. There was an episode about that, wasn't there?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if, in the same way that Franklin Furnace has spent more than 40 years trying to see how things come together, it's as if pornography and surveillance have come together through the culture.
Yeah.
If I may close with something though that Martha wrote back when Franklin Furnace went virtual. Martha wrote, "The internet is a wide open frontier with very few fences in place." This is 1997 when she wrote it. This is the time for artists to get their underground ideas to the broadest possible audience through the convergent art medium the 20th century spent itself looking for. And this was in a prominent place on the very first iteration of the Franklin Furnace website. And to me, this really embodies and explains how and why Franklin Furnace became involved in all this. To me, it's clear when we hear Martha writing something like this or saying something like this, that there's a continuum. There's no, here's something new, let's try this. No, really, it's a continuum of finding the best way to share these artists' ideas. So also, this split between the program for technology and the program for performance, or what have you, it's similar to what was going on in the gallery and what was going on in the performance space. And you had artists who would go from one space to the other very, very seamlessly. So you would have, Karen Findlay in the performance space, and then an installation, an exhibition of Karen Findlay in the gallery space. It didn't really make any difference. It's just the right and appropriate space for that particular piece.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Franklin Furnace went virtual in '96. At what time did it become Franklin Furnace Archives? Same time?
That was day one. Franklin Furnace Archive was incorporated in.
From the very beginning?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I get it. So you didn't change the mission
No.
to be more archival?
No.
Okay.
So I have also some questions from the questionnaire that were from, some are from you, but others are from artists who aren't here. This was from Alex Pillow, who says, how relevant is art and technology in a time when almost all tech has been mainstream or owned, controlled by third parties and disrespectful of privacy and personal liberty? Is there any reality to free or liberal, to any reality in a world where artist practice is wholly commodified? So is there any kind of a scope? Can we rightfully embrace art and technology in the face of environmental collapse? Which is that's a huge question.
It is several questions.
Yeah.
I wanted to piggyback off that.
Can you come forward?
Come forward.
Yeah.
So my
Can you come forward? Right forward. Yeah, you have to
Even
come
more
right.
forward?
Yeah.
Goodness. This
is
fun.
John.
Hi. So my question, it was funny when the live stream went off, and I think Tony asked, is it being recorded? And Tony said, oh, well, good, it won't be lost.
Yeah.
And I thought I appreciate in the space that we are, where we're talking about this archive and everything living offline, I find when I'm doing an event, people always ask, well, are you recording it or are you live streaming it? And I've actually taken a stand to be in the present, and to really think about not recording anything, having everyone have to exist today, right now, at this moment. And I just wanted to ask some of you that have worked this way, and I think, and you hinted at it, like everything now is a template. Nothing is original anymore. And then this is to this question of third party. Everything we do is commodified, and every being, every click, everything. So I wonder maybe what the conversation might be to going back to this moment together ourselves. What if we were in this room having this conversation that maybe was recorded, maybe wasn't, and then how does that disseminate in today's world? That's my question.
Yeah, that's
Thanks.
very nice.
I used to have
Come
an
forward.
ongoing argument with a friend of mine, and he was a performance artist, and he used to insist that the real-time moment was it.
Yeah, yeah.
And he wasn't engaged in documentation.
Yeah, I mean, there is that whole debate, and Tony, we talked about that as well. Peggy Phelan, who's like, you can't, as soon as you document it, it's not documentation anymore. So, but now, of course, it's like people do. They almost live. You go to parties sometimes where the phones are more prevalent than the people, and the fun that's being had seems to be entirely directed at phones. I've had that experience a couple of times since being here. And in, I mean, all cities really, but yeah. So that's where I'm kind of looking at the body as performing to make the digital body look better. And even with this Zoom thing, where your skin looks so nice, my digital body looks better than my physical one. So I might as well have a meeting online because I'm going to look better rather than and also dragging my body from here to there to sit and actually talk to someone. But I agree that when you actually talk, there is still an effect, and not everything. I don't think that archiving and recording everything means that doesn't equal impact. I think that, and I think there's a kind of movement also. I've met quite a few young people lately who just don't have a phone or are resisting it, and I think that's also very interesting. And of course, or Facebook as well. I mean, it was interesting on this platform the way everybody here is on Facebook, and then I tried to put it on Instagram, but that's not the case there. So it's also a generational thing. But
easier to archive when there is no recording.
Yeah. No, but it's also about the
wine and the cheese,
But it's also the vulnerability as well of the archive, of the digital archive. So, for instance, when I was here in the 90s, I wrote, I set up my first Hotmail account actually in the old Franklin Furnace offices, and another intern helped me set up my first Hotmail account in 1998. And, in those days I actually wrote sort of long emails back home to friends or whatever, and I was thinking they would have been really useful now for this research that I'm doing because they were first-hand statements and reflection on what was happening. But I don't log into Facebook, Hotmail very much, but they've all gone. So since I think the oldest emails I have now are 2005, so that's 7 years of correspondence that's just gone without me even knowing. And I didn't think I'd miss my Hotmail emails until they weren't there, and then and I don't know how to get them back, and I don't know if I will. And if you think that's happened to everybody as well, so it's sort of the case for and against archiving.
And there is also artwork with only documentation. So,
exactly. Yeah. But I think also this comment that Alex Pillow makes about art and technology in the face of environmental collapse, and that's a huge thing. And the idea that just being online is a greener way of being is not. Because it's not virtual, it's not without huge amount of so that's something that I think we all have to exactly. We had also a question from Andrea Polly. How are ideas about the near future presented through performance art, and how these manifested over time? I think we might have covered that.
About the near future.
Ideas about the near future presented through performance, and I think that we saw that in these performances, particularly I think with yours, and also parts of yours in the way that it's worked. I think you're also. And then also we had a comment from Mouchette, or the person behind Mouchette, saying you should ask about the preservation of internet networks that were made 15 years ago and how they've been preserved. And that's where, again, this sore point of year 2000, where there was a collaboration that year with Parsons, so the artists got to work with students, which was kind of an exciting thing. But they're all archived now on a server that doesn't exist. we think we can chase it up somewhere, but it sort of goes. You have to go and email people who worked 20 years ago at that place. But,
I think on the Wayback Machine.
Wayback, yes, exactly. You can find some stuff there.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I say something?
Yes,
Is
of
it-
course. Yeah.
I think that I was thinking with my project, the word technology, so one of the impetus was just thinking about that word that people used it even at that time in 2003 to talk about new technology, but something like a book or a vacuum cleaner, you don't think of as technology, but actually, it's it's been with humans all along. It's just that it's different technology, new technology. But I think that the whole issue of archiving is, yes, it's a very huge issue, and obsolescence. My black and white camera, I can still take pictures and still see them, but the hard drives I had in 2003, I can't access that data anymore, unless you keep transferring it.
And that's why I got excited about these slides.
Yeah, exactly.
It's quite,
That's what will be left.
Yeah.
I would say something. I would say that there's a push to there's a push to chase after the latest technology, and that overrides a lot of social kind of issues. Always.
Yeah.
And I think there's companies invested in us chasing after the latest, greatest.
Also, that's very important.
Inventing the new technologies for us to use.
Yeah.
It also overrides artistic issues because it can take time to master a particular technology. I spend forever on a given level of technology. I'm extreme, but I think a lot of artists will rush to the next thing when they haven't fully absorbed what's out there.
Right.
People have different relationships.
Yeah, and I see that in the technology industry overall, like making a living in the technology industry. There's a big shift from I met this woman the other day who's working on mainframes, and that's something she was doing in the 80s and the 90s, and now she's doing where I'm working. But she said that there's no work for that anymore because it's an outdated technology. But, I mean, what did people do?
What do people do? Is that the note we're going to end on? What do we do?
No, I think people can do much.
Yeah.
There's much for us to do.
I agree.
And I think it's always going to be a battle between large corporations and large corporate interests and individuals.
I mean, as I think it was I think it was Alex said, or Tony, maybe you said it's the same. It wasn't without big corporations back then either. It was AOL and Time Warner and things, so it wasn't as if that was completely...
That's what my PhD was about.
Yeah, exactly, like pure things, exactly. So, so we've always battling with the big
There
companies.
was a time before AOL when the internet was only non-commercial. It seems incredible, it seems like a dream that was the case. Yeah, government and educational institutions. And commerce was, I think it wasn't allowed. And now it just seems preposterous to say that.
Right.
And there was a time before the World Wide Web when the internet was doing a lot of things that were not there.
Right.
I'm going to just show some dead links that I've come across in this before we end. So here are some of my dead links that I found that were meant to be artists' websites.
Can you share your screen?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you mean those are just 404?
This was share screen. Yeah, this was this was sort of where I was very excited to find websites, and then kind of found these. So there's a series. So this was fine, except you have to download Flash or download something. Lots of 404s, property websites. These come back later. Top reasons why you should trust the UK online casinos. So yeah, it's just also the sort of who takes over these spaces when they're not, and of course also the cost of real space online as well. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Right. Great. I'll find. Where are you? Find you here. So yeah, I think probably that's a good place. And we can raise a glass of wine. And I think also this is, thank you all so much for, responding to my randomly sent out questionnaire and for answering it and for being here physically and also not physically. Like, thank you so much, Tony, for all your help, and Lynn, really great to have you involved as well. And I feel like obviously I'm sort of, I've just been here 3 weeks, and I think it's the first time I've also really done archive research and coming here and kind of with a certain idea. So originally I was going to focus only on the first 2 years, and then I realised that actually in order to get anything particularly kind of interesting beyond just very sort of semi-examples, I needed to look at the whole decade, and that's when it then became really interesting in terms of that as a body of work in itself, as the grants that are awarded. So I feel like this is the beginning, perhaps, of a longer conversation that I might try to have with you guys and with other artists as well, and of course with Franklin Furnace. So I really appreciate also all the help that I've had, Franklin Furnace, from Martha, Harley, and also Alice Wu, who wanted to be here but couldn't, unfortunately, at the last minute, and she was the administrator for several years here, and when I was here interning, and also for Andrea, who's been very helpful, and also Marcus Chang, who's next door, and then I also had Ruth, and all their names are on the Facebook thing, but pretty much every single intern is somehow embroiled with my work at some point, doing something or other. And yeah, it's very great to be back here and to kind of come across these archived memories alongside my own hazy ones, and to kind of see all of us and where we are now. Thank you, and thanks for whoever is watching. And this will be also archived somewhere. We might take it off. We might take it off Facebook and put it on Vimeo, but we'll let you know where it is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to stop the Facebook thing. This is going. It's still going. Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye, Tony. Thank you so much.
Bye, Tony.
Yeah, good. You got your wine. Bye-bye. End the meeting.
Yes, evening. Where he is.
Yeah, it is.
7 hours.
Right, now I need to stop this stream. There we go. End live video.